Hello, this is Ken. I like making things. Whether it's repainting my figures or making diorama displays, I love making things look awesome. My goal is to elevate my figures so they can shine on my display. Join my DIY venture as I ask myself the same question every week. Can I make it? Last week, I made 2 mini displays for my Across the Spider-Verse figures. I also tried out some new tools. The portal and effects turned out really cool. Check that video out if you haven't already. I included the spot in that video briefly, but I didn't want that video to be too long, so I didn't show how I painted him. The spot is interesting. This is probably the weakest figure from this wave. It looks very basic. A pure white figure with black dots here and there. It doesn't seem worth getting at full price. That said, Miles popping out of a portal is a very cool accessory. Let's deconstruct this figure. There's an FAQ on the paint and brushes I use in the description box below. As time goes by, I started appreciating the odd body proportions more and more. It fits the spot's awkward personality very well. Another thing I really appreciate is that the backside is painted. I didn't know what to do with the spot when the figure first came out, but now that I've done Spider-Punk, I feel more comfortable doing loose strokes. Like being messy, but intentionally. In the movie, the spot is constantly evolving. His spots get more intense, and eventually, he becomes all black and very menacing. I believe this particular version of Spot is somewhere in the middle. Since the Spot is very likely going to be in the next movie with a new look, I'm going to assume he'll get a new figure as well. That is why I'm going to keep mine as is, using what's already on the figure and enhancing it even more. Before I paint, let me give the figure a quick sand first. I don't always sand my figures, but this figure feels very slippery. Sanding it should help make the paint grip onto the surface better. Alright, let's paint. The main issue I see with this figure is that glossy plastic shine. I shouldn't call it an issue, since that's just how toys are made. But for a 2D character, a glossy finish just doesn't look right. So I'm gonna mattify it by painting over the figure with the white first. Oh, I remember a comment asking why I don't use a matte spray instead. That's a good question. I have 3 main reasons why I prefer painting over the spray. First of all, it's a habit at this point. I didn't start using a matte spray until like half a year ago. Second, the paint is much cheaper than the spray. I want to use the spray as sparingly as possible. I usually only use it as the final coat for some figures. And my final reason may not be factual. I personally find that the paint blends better when there's a base layer of paint beneath it. I could be wrong, but this is what has been working for me. Alright, now that I have a base layer of paint, it's time to make the Spot look more like his movie counterpart. While the Spot is technically white, in the movie, he's actually more like a light gray with white highlights. He is cel shaded, but the cel shading resembles more of a rough character sketch. You can see a lot of hand-drawn details on him. So I'm first gonna mix myself a very light gray and apply it over the inner or center part of his body. It's hard to tell on camera, but the paint is half a shade darker. The tricky thing with acrylic paint is that it often dries darker. So while it looks like nothing is happening now, the gray may become more obvious in a few minutes. Alright, let me use the white to emphasize the highlights a bit more. I'm gonna keep these strokes a bit more streaky. The idea is to not overblend the strokes. Gotta make the Spot look like he's hand-drawn. A blend of a pencil crayon and watercolor look. Alright, now I'm gonna add some thin strokes with the gray. Light enough that you don't notice them at a glance, but just dark enough for them to show up on the figure. The key is to make sure these strokes are asymmetrical. like how an artist would sketch these rough strokes to define certain body parts. The most challenging part about this is that these lines need to look confident, like how character designers would add strokes here and there to define the shapes and give the characters more personality. So that's kinda what I'm channeling, a character designer. But you saw my Spider-Man drawing last week. I'm not that good at freehand drawing or drawing characters, but I'm gonna pretend to be one here. Okay, on to the actual spots. I want to achieve two things here. Getting rid of the shine so the holes actually look like holes, and softening the edges. In the movie, the spots on the spot look more like watercolor splatters, but Hasbro gave the figure spots with crisp edges. So I'm going to use a soft brush to dab around the edges to give them more of a splotchy look. This will also make the holes look more organic and add more dimension to them, as if they're growing in size and in depth as well. Okay, last but not least, I'm gonna add some very soft strokes of light blue here and there to further enhance that watercolor look. Like there's a layer of blue underneath all the white and it's showing through. Even though I'm adding this last, it needs to be very subtle. Onto the spot effect. I love Miles' head and his hand. The only thing I don't love are the actual portals. So let me mattify them first. Get rid of that plastic shine to make them look more like mini black holes. But just like the spots on the figure, I want the holes to not look like ovals but more like circles with splotchy edges. So I'm gonna dab some light blue around the perimeter to soften the edges and make it look a bit like the Space Stone portal. Alright, the spot is finished. The changes aren't that obvious from afar. I used what's already on the figure and didn't make any major changes. That said, the matte texture and the splotchy holes definitely look better on the spot. The rough sketch art style also turned out very well. This was the figure I was least interested in from this wave, but now that he's painted, my opinion has changed. The spot has such a fun design. What do you think? Do you like what I've done? Let me know down below. I don't think I'll be getting Gwen unless I find one on sale, but I have my reasons. The issue I see with Gwen's figures are her eyes. I don't think I can fix them with paint, and since there's one more movie coming out, Gwen is likely gonna play a bigger role in it. I expect them to release another Gwen figure. The same goes for the spot. I can totally see them releasing another spot figure with its full powered look. That is why I kept mine the way it is. Alright, let's end this for the photo shoot. Maybe it's just my figure, but I find the spot's range of motion quite limited. The small feet aren't helping either, but I was able to put him in a couple of fun poses. The slightly goofy body proportions work really well for the spot, despite him being hard to balance. Alright, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Give it a like and subscribe to see more content like this. Doc Ock should be next. I still have to finish the No Way Home wave. So until then, stay inspired and I'll see you next week. I can make it, so can you.